Republic of Cuba, presented by Edwin Henry. The Republic of Cuba is a country located in Central America and the Caribbean between the Caribbean Sea and the North Atlantic Ocean, 150 kilometers or 93.2 miles south of Key West, Florida. Cuba is the largest country by land area in the Caribbean, and its main island is the 17th largest island in the world by land area. Cuba only borders Guantanamo Naval Base, which is leased by the U.S. and remains part of Cuba. The flag of Cuba was designed in 1849 and officially adopted May 20th, 1902. The three blue stripes represent the three departments in which Cuba was divided at the time. The white, the purity of the ideals, the light. The red triangle originated from the French Revolution, and the three ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Red for the blood and the courage. The star was the new state that should be added to the United States. It is one of the two flags of a current communist country, besides Laos, that does not use any communist symbolism. The Republic of Cuba government is under a communist state with its capital being Havana. Administrative divisions are set up into 15 provinces and operate legally off civil law system based on civil Spanish code. Similar to the U.S., they also have executive, legislative, and judicial branches of power. Their national holiday is the Triumph of the Revolution, celebrated on January 1st. Cuba's population is 11,179,995, with the official language of Spanish. The large population clusters are found throughout the country, the more significant ones being in the large towns and cities, particularly the capital of Havana. The ethnic groups you'll find are white, mulatto or mixed, and black as of the 2012 census, but they all identify as Cuban. About 99.8% of the population of Cubans can read and write at the age of 15 and up. Cuba operates off a dual currency system, the peso CUP and convertible peso CUC. It can be confusing, but the CUC is 25 times more worth the CUP. Wages in Cuba increased to 740 CUP a month in 2016 from 687 CUP a month in 2015, which is $29 a month. Cuba's prevailing religion is Christianity, primarily Roman Catholicism, although in some instances it is profoundly modified and influenced through syncretism, which is combining of beliefs. Non-Christian minority religions in Cuba include Hinduism and Chinese folk religion. Random things to know about Cuba. Cuba has the highest doctor-to-population ratio in the world. Coca-Cola does not officially exist in Cuba, but you can find it. Cuba has a native species of a leaping crocodiles and is endangered. Blowing your nose in public is seen as poor social etiquette in Cuba. Cuban cuisine is a blend of Native American Taino food, Spanish, African, and Caribbean cuisines, with some Caribbean influence in spice and flavor. A small but noteworthy Chinese influence can also be found, accounted for mainly in the Havana area. Quite a bit of sandwiches, chicken, and pork. Petroleum, nickel, medical products, sugar, tobacco, fish, citrus and coffee are leading export commodities, with partners being Russia, Venezuela, and Spain. Import commodities are petroleum, food, machinery, and equipment. Our largest import partners are China, Spain, Italy, Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and Canada. Fidel Castro's death in 2016 effectively changed nothing. The Castro family, which has ruled since 1959, maintains an almost total media monopoly and tolerates no independent reporting. Arbitrary arrests and imprisonment, threats, smear campaigns, confiscation of equipment, and closure of websites are the most common forms of harassment. These practices are ubiquitous and are buttressed by an arsenal of restrictive laws. Cuba now is under the leadership of his brother, Raul Modesto Castro Ruiz. U.S. government pays $4,085 per year to Cuba to lease the infamous Guantanamo Bay Naval Base. Cuba is a source of country for adults and children subjected to sex trafficking and forced labor, and it goes along with drug trafficking. The territorial waters and airspace serve as the transshipment zone for U.S. and European-bound drugs and humans. The United States embargo on Cuba was first placed on arms, and on February 7, 1962, the embargo was extended to include almost all imports. Critics of the embargo say that the embargo laws are too harsh, citing the fact that violations can result in up to 10 years in prison. President Obama will become the second sitting American president after Calvin Coolidge to visit Cuba in 9 decades, resulting in the lifting of embargo December 17, 2014. The internet in Cuba stagnated since its introduction in 1990s because of a lack of funding, tight government restrictions, and the U.S. embargo. Starting in 2007, this situation began to slowly improve. By 2015, the Cuban government opened the first public Wi-Fi hotspots in 35 public locations. Now, 3,696,765 internet users were reported in March 2017. That's 32.5% penetration rate per IWS. By January 2018, there were public hotspots in approximately 500 public locations nationwide, providing access in most major cities. The government's major TV station is Cuba Vision and Cuba Vision International, which provide news, films, soap operas, and sports. About 90% of the films shown in Cuba are American, either dubbed or subtitled in Spanish so Cubans can learn English. Nightlife and salsa dancing are very popular as well. 1,322,002 people have landlines to communicate in Cuba. 3,987,900 people have cell phones in Cuba, and to think ordinary citizens were banned to own cell phones and could not purchase personal computers until 2008. Cuba's important newspaper is the Granma, an 8-page tabloid that carries the name of the boat of Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and Confederates during the invasion of Cuba. There are a few independent journalists in Cuba, but their only outlets are publications outside of Cuba. Cuba has 6 branches of military. Age 17 to 28 years for compulsory military service, 2-year service obligation for males, and is optional for females. Cuba's constitution permits only state-controlled media outlets. Independent news agencies and bloggers who try to dispute the state's monopoly of news and information are subjected to intimidation, arrest, and draconian censorship. Cuba continues to be one of the worst countries in Latin America for media freedom and ranks 171st out of 180 countries in the RSF's World Press Freedom Index. Just recently, the U.S. and Cuba reached an agreement to commence commercial flights for the first time in 50 years. In a short time, millions of Americans will have the opportunity to visit Cuba and soak in its rich and vibrant culture. After years of a failed policy, it is time for our country to engage with Cuba and ensure our foreign policy encourages opportunity that is good for both Americans and Cubans. Thank you.